Excuse me, what a difference 8 months make.
In January, the New Yorker reported that the president was, quote, incredibly flip, unquote, in trivializing the threat from ISIS. Here is what Mr. Obama said in response to a question about ISIS. Quote, the analogy we use around here sometimes, and I think is accurate, is if a JV team puts on Lakers uniforms, that doesn't make them Kobe Bryant, unquote.
Question, has President Obama been estimating ISIS for 8 months, or will ISIS be proven to be a JV team? Mort Zuckerman.
Let me put it this way. If he had 10 sentences in his career that he'd like to withdraw, that would be one of them, okay?
And we spotted.
Yes, I mean, it's ridiculous to put it in those terms.
Well, it was 8 months ago. Who was thinking the way we are today?
A lot of people were.
I was.
A lot of people were. What are you talking about?
You were? Were you?
A lot of people
were you thinking this 8 months?
I was against bombing Assad last summer, and thank goodness we didn't.
So what's the point of talking about this now?
Well, because in a sense it reflects on some levels a misjudgment as to what was going on.
Weren't we all making similar ones? Did it seem out of line when you read it?
Let me put it this way, if I may say so. He's the president of the United States. He's got a level of intelligence and an access to intelligence slightly better than what we have. Not totally, but to make those kinds of casual statements when you're dealing with something that is so critical to the whole region of the United States, Middle East region, and to the United States.
Maybe he should be talking to somebody over at the State Department. Maybe he should be talking about some of his inner circle. Mm-hmm. If he's prepared to make a statement like that. He's being prepped on these things, correct?
I don't know how it works, to be honest with you.
I agree he would like maybe to take that back, but I think what he's trying to do is to sort of slow the march to war. I mean, he lived through that whole Iraq experience and all the sort of pushing by all quarters to go to war. Slow it down, and be deliberative, and I think that's coming across.
We don't need American troops, John.
He's got the substance right. He's got to have a little more grandiose language.
Right, and God bless him for that.
Totally.
God bless him for that.
John, amen. I'm in the pew with you.
Exit question. President Obama began the week on the defensive about the White House's lack of a strategy against ISIS. Is he still on the defensive? Why don't you knock him again, Pat?
I haven't knocked him at all, hardly. Look, I think he's doing the right thing in Iraq, and I think he can do the right thing in Syria. But I do think we don't need American boots on the ground, and I think you're going to have to work with some unsavory characters if we're going to degrade and destroy these guys.
Eleanor.
Right on all those scores, and that sums up the president's approach. Saying he didn't have a strategy was a statement of the obvious, the kind of the thing you shouldn't say out loud. He does have a strategy now, and he's brought Europe along, and those beheadings, I think, really sobered up a lot of people.
What do you say,
Yeah, I have to say, respectfully, with Eleanor and Pat, I profoundly disagree. I think there's a problem in the sense that our strategy has been too slow. The military tensions, the intelligence community tensions have been brewing for a long time. They've been seeing this happening since at least 2 years back, but especially even a year ago, last summer. And I'm happy, though, that the president now is beginning to take charge of this, and hopefully we can see a more comprehensive strategy in the coming days.
Do you think he's soliciting the information and the ideas and the strategies from the resources at his immediate vicinity? Or does Obama think that he has everything under control?
Well, I think that's one big issue, and my concern is that he's been badly served by people in his national security team. I think.
Well, what are they supposed to do?
He has a reputation.
Bang on his door and insist
on no. The intelligence community has a reputation for not reading his intelligence brief, the presidential daily brief, for not engaging in what's called deep dives with his analysts. Speak to the people, engage with the team you have in the broader government, not just in the White House.
Do you have any reason to think that Obama is being a bad boy in any of the ways we've said here?
I don't know how. I don't describe it in terms of being a bad boy. At least from the sources that I have, there have been pressures from within the administration who have alerted him on this issue a lot earlier than he is finally responding to. And there was a kind of concern about it. Why didn't he get on top of this issue? And frankly, that is the feeling that I have. He's way late in the game to deal with it, and that is a big problem.
All right, let me tell you what I think, okay?
Please.
I think that the foremost characteristic, virtue, requirement of a politician and of all of us in every walk of life, for example, is prudence. Prudence. Particularly when there's so much riding on everything he says, etc. And I have to commend him, I think, at this point, on his prudence. Issue 2, Mitt versus Hillary?
Someone else has a better chance than I do. and that's what we believe, and that's why I'm not running. And, you know, circumstances can change. Well, you know, let's say all the guys that were running all came together and said, hey, we've decided we can't do it. You must do it. That's the one out of a million we're thinking about.
Former Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney left the door open, even if it is only a 1 in a million chance, to another run for the presidency in 2016.
What's happened?
Romney has had a resurgence in the polls since the 2012 presidential race. In July, a CNN ORC poll found that if the 2012 election were to be held again this summer, Romney would defeat Obama 53% to 44%. When it comes to Republican voters in the crucial early caucus state of Iowa, Romney leads the pack of 2016 GOP contenders. A poll released last week shows 35% of Iowa Republicans would back Romney in the GOP caucuses, topping his next closest contender, Mike Huckabee. Former Clinton strategist James Carville predicts that Romney will run. Quote, we know he wants to be president. He's run twice. Romney would be a classic Republican nominee, unquote. Fueling speculation about a 2016 White House bid is Romney's presence on the campaign trail with appearances in Iowa, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and Arkansas in a schedule that includes 36 political rallies and fundraising events over the past year.
Question, will Mitt Romney run again for president? And if so, if he does, will 2016 match Romney against Hillary Clinton? Eleanor Clift.
I don't think Romney will run unless the whole field collapses and they turn to him. And I think the possibility of that happening is the 1 in a million. But, you know, you could talk.
Do you know how much he lost by?
5 percentage points in the general election.
Yeah, why?
7%?
Because there was a hurricane that took everything off the screen for about a week.
It was a hurricane of women,
and
John.
He didn't show up with the governor of New Jersey. Remember all that?
I do.
And then he couldn't get back in. But at that time, when he was going to win the election before that hurricane.
Oh no, he wasn't.
I'm just going to say this: if you think, I'll make a small bet with you, and I'll give you a lot of odds.
Well, you're prepared to do better than that, boy.
Yes. If there's going to be one person in the Republican group who is going to end up as the nominee, in my judgment, it's going to be Jeb Bush. And he will have no chance, in my judgment, against Jeb Bush.
Let me disagree with Mort. There's no doubt Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, and Mitt Romney are in the establishment category or bracket headed for the finals. I think Mitt would come out first there. I don't see Bush as really having the drive or inner drive. And I think then you get Mitt Romney against someone like a Cruz or someone like that. And I think that would be the finals. And I think Mitt, if he's got it in his heart to do this thing.
Why doesn't he pick a woman as his running mate?
Well, he's got to get the nomination first.
Assume he does. Who would be the best woman for him to pick?
Why would you pick?
What about Hillary if she runs? Should she pick a man as vice president?
I certainly would try that.
Yeah, probably would.
You would.
I sure would.
Romney, though, is very popular with. Clearly, Mitt Romney is very popular with the Republican base. You see that in polls like Iowa, conservative states, but also on the foreign policy issues because of Russia. A lot of that, you know, the rhetoric of the debates is coming back in Romney's favor.
Yes.
And his documentary that recently came out, a documentary following him, seemed to humanize him more. So I think he would be a strong candidate. But there are a lot of candidates.
Do you think Romney wakes up in the middle of the night hearing "Hail to the Chief"? Yes or no?
He does.
He does. He does.
And
I don't know that.
Because he needs more sleep. That's how I know it.
John, the only cure for presidential fever is embalming fluid. I think he's going to run.
Well, Pat is familiar with another politician who was washed up and made an incredible comeback. Maybe you can do a sequel with Mitt Romney. Here's a chance to plug your book, Pat.
Issue 3, GOP woos women.
Whom do a majority of female voters view as quote-unquote intolerant, lacking in compassion, stuck in the past? Republicans. These are the findings from an internal report commissioned by Republican groups. Crossroads GPS, backed by Karl Rove and American Action Network on the question of how the GOP is regarded by women. The data is based on 8 focus groups and a poll of 800 registered female voters. In 2012, 2 years ago, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney took a shellacking from female voters. They voted in favor of the Democratic incumbent Barack Obama by a 12% margin, 56% Obama to 44% Romney. So the Republican National Committee vowed to erase the gender gap and woo women voters. But the gap still exists. 49% of women view Republicans unfavorably, whereas 39% of women view Democrats unfavorably. Geographically, Republicans do especially poorly, quote unquote, with women in the Northeast and Midwest. So how do Republicans propose to close the gender gap and even reverse it? Answer: pursue policy innovations that inspire women voters to give the GOP a quote unquote fresh look. But the top policy issue female focus groups respond positively to is equal pay for equal work, a Democratic initiative. In fact, on the broader question of who, quote unquote, looks out for the interests of women, Democrats hold the advantage. Well, is there any good news for Republicans? Yes. Married women without a college degree routinely favor Republicans over Democrats.
Question: how can the GOP turn the tide to their favor with female voters? I ask you.
I think the first thing that we need to see is a change in rhetoric. I mean, some of the rhetoric we have heard in previous campaigns is so obviously negative in the tone that it sends to women who potentially might vote Republican that it off-puts them immediately. But a second point is that I think Republicans need to engage with issues that female voters tend to put high on the priority. Education reform, really taking ownership of education, the future of the country. If we're talking about, for example, Medicare reform, Social Security issues, things that women tend to care more about social issues.
What about schools? What about education?
Education, I think we need to see a more, going towards an opportunity culture that regardless of where you're born, that you have a better chance in life. These are things that I think women...
Do you think married women are more susceptible or less susceptible to Democrats? Susceptible may be a bad
Married
word.
women tend to vote more...
Do they tend to be Democratic?
We're Republican.
It's about the role
Democratic
of
or Republican?
Married women with children are very Republican. Where you get the real Democratic advantage is unmarried women with children. They've been divorced. They depend heavily on the government for income, for housing, for education, for health care, all these things. And the Republican Party is the party that says we're going to cut government. And to them, these folks, government
So all
is
those
what they
poor
survive
women
on.
without husbands need the government, is what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
I think that's what you just
Why?
said.
Just a moment, please. Just a moment.
It is about the role of government, and I do think single women, for whatever reason, widowed, divorced, never married, and they've been through this very deep recession, and they think government has a role in caring for people. And Republicans have made it a crusade of wanting to dismantle all these programs that benefit people, and they turn off women.
Okay, well, what about married women who have had no college education? Who does better with them? Republicans or Democrats? Do you have thoughts on this?
Well, there I would argue that it's a question who does better with the economy, because these are women who will be working.
Right.
And I don't think the Democrats have a good record on the economy these days, and that's going to be one of their real problems. The economy has been very weak for the last 5 years. It's continuing to be weak, and like it or not, the Democrats are going to be held responsible.
Blue-collar working women. Especially if they're single.
You can't beat something with nothing, and
what's that?
You can't beat something with nothing, and Republicans have not offered any positive proposals. Minimum wage is huge. Raising the minimum wage is huge. Democrats support it. Republicans oppose it.
Wait a minute. What's the quick fix for the Republican problem with women? Quick fix.
No quick fix.
No quick fix?
None.
False prediction. The U.S. Congress will authorize U.S. airstrikes against Syria by October 1. Yes or no?
Not by then, no.
Yes or no?
No, after the election.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes or no? Answer yes. Bye-bye.